Okay, we're on the air. Everybody, welcome to the Scotch Sessions, Episode 1. This is going to be me and Craig getting drunk and talking about magic. I'd love to see other magicians get drunk and talk about magic every chance they get, because this is pretty much the best way to do it, in my opinion. Craig and I are just going to be hanging out, having fun, and talking about things that we believe. So we'll go ahead and, without further ado, get started. Craig, what would you like, how would you want to introduce yourself, given the opportunity?
Well, most of the bios I use online boil down to bearded, frothing madman. Now, the thing with that is that it's mostly because a lot of the labels we use, you know, magician, sorcerer, shaman, whatever, they're great, but they're highly specific. And personally, in my case, the sort of the idea of going out and really embracing the feral nature, the fact that the world is alive and full of wonder and terror and everything, and you know, the kind of and the kind of thing that inspires poets, and the legendary idea of poets being able to do magic by the sound of their voice and things like that. All of that sort of boils down to a really complex idea. So you know, I will cop to being called a magician, I will cop to being called a sorcerer, but I actually kind of prefer the bearded, frothing madman, because that covers a multitude of enjoyment and also a multitude of sins. I've been practicing sort of the occult way of things for, seriously, about 15 years. I've been dabbling for about 18. And I mostly write weird shit and do strange things at various points in front of altars or out in the world, depending on how things go. And I mostly identify as a heathen, which means that I am one of those dirty pagan heathen types. But for me, it's very much about connecting with the landscape in which I live and the spirits and things that live in that area.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the closest bio that I will give.
It's hard to define what it is you are. When I've been reading your stuff for years now, and I enjoy it. You've got, like, you know, I'm a little jealous. You've got the poetic gift. You know, I consider you an actual writer. You know, when it comes to writing, I think I'm a hack. I'm a tech writer. I can go through and identify processes and understand what it's all about. And when I try to tell other people about it, I can make them slideshows with bullet points. And basically, that's what my books turn out to be, is sort of what I'd be blabbing about if there was a bulleted list of steps on a screen in front of a bunch of people, you know. So when I go back and I read your stuff, and it's like it grabs you by the throat, you know. It's like, let me tell you what it is that we're experiencing, you know. Just reading through some of the posts you've made over the years, it's just, you know, you're writing things in ways that express what I've experienced, you know. Like my experiences with the genius loci, you know, or whatever we want to call the nature spirits. That my experience when I'm getting into a ritual, my experience when I'm conjuring the spirits and they're filling the air with their presence, you know, it's very, it just shows through in your writing that the things you do are the things I do, you know. Like I identify so much with your experiences. And then you're a heathen, pagan, dirty scoundrel that's going to hell if there were one, you know. It's like we don't have the same language. And when I was trying to write up the description of what we were going to be doing, you know, and I went with Scotch, the Scotch Sessions, because this isn't, I wanted to say Scotch plus magicians or something like that, you know, tried to find a title for what it was that you were and what I am and how we share whatever it is in common. And there isn't a shared vocabulary, you know, that's effective and meaningful. Any woo-woo professional term that we end up using is going to be specific to a culture or preconditioned set of expectations, like shaman or hermetic magician or ceremonial magician or poet, you know, whatever the approach is. So, but yeah, I'm glad you described yourself that way, because I don't know what to call you.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people, when they first start out, they glom onto a term, you know, that they think fits them and fits what they do, and that's totally cool. But over the years, I've sort of gone, there's, as you said, there's gaps in vocabulary, but the fact that even though we're coming at things at different angles, and we we can recognize each other. I think it was Gordon White who made the comment in one of his blogs years ago that you can basically smell your own.
Oh yeah.
You know, you know when somebody's hitting similar sort of things, even if it's not the same identical lens. And I think, to be honest, a friend of mine would once put it this way, that the magic really, you know, can't be described with words. It's all about in between the words and the things and the pauses and the rhythms that you can see in words but are not spoken. There's something about it which isn't totally an intellectual, which isn't totally a linguistic thing to it. I mean, you can say magic words and you know, Vocus Magicae and barbarous names are important, but ultimately it's the experiences. And poets and mystics have been trying to communicate that to people for thousands of years, and mostly getting it right occasionally and then having it totally screw up, you know. And then some people form religions around that, interpretations of text, and other people are just like, no, screw the books, I'm going to go out and live in the woods or the desert, or I'm going to sit in my office and cast sigils and get a massively better job, or I'm going to go home and call on Boone and say, hey man, how you doing? Let's talk about this and do whatever we're going to do, you know, and call the spirits and really recognize that we are part of a larger whole, you know, part of a larger living cosmos.
All right, cosmos. That's something I wanted to talk to you about, was that word in particular.
Okay.
Cosmos. What is your cosmology? I mean, and what is I know you're heathen, and I mean, how would you start to describe your cosmology, and also, would you be offended at the word cosmology?
No, I wouldn't at all. In fact, I've used that many times before. For me, when I use the term cosmos, it's a term I have liberated from some of the work of David Beth and folks working in the Gnostic continuum and the cosmic gnosis stuff, of which I'm also part. In that the cosmos is all that is. You know, the cosmos is, you know, in sort of magic there's certain left-hand path movements that would be like, oh, I'm anti-cosmos, I'm against the world, you know. And I'm like, the world is part of the cosmos, but the world is not all of the cosmos. The world is that bit that humans inhabit. But the cosmos is everything there is. It's all the worlds, all the realms, all these other, you know, the strange places we end up as magicians that people like to systematize and go, oh yes, that is the astral realm, that is the supernal realm, that is the Empyrean. I really don't bother with those dividing lines because it's all the cosmos. And, you know, so personal cosmology, I will freely admit, is what one could call idiosyncratic. The model I suppose I would use is something that would have you say that there is, for want of a better word, and I am speaking metaphorically, but we all know that metaphors are slightly more than just metaphors when we're dealing with magic, that there is essentially a variety of worlds, and worlds are bounded spaces. They're, you know, they are, you could argue that the Sephiroth were worlds, you could argue that the place where the elves live is a world. It doesn't really matter, but cosmologically speaking, I prefer my internal map to be mapped on the idea that there is a big central tree, and I'm not talking about the tree of life or the kosher tree or any of this stuff. I'm very much talking about, particularly in a heathen sense, you call it Yggdrasil, which is a giant tree with all the worlds. But the idea of the world tree or the world mountain is found in
everywhere,
shit tons of cultures.
Right.
And the interesting thing about it from the Norse heathen side of things is that at least if you look in some of the Eddas and the poems that were collected, which are 13th century, so there's going to be some mixing between Christian and heathen, but the poems say that the gods found the humans, or the first humans, as essentially driftwood. The gods were walking down by the seashore, and they found some driftwood, and they decided to give them gifts of intelligence and various other gifts, which mixed them into humans. And for me, that it took me a while, and I was reading that, and I had some previous experience before I became heathen, and I was sitting there going, you know, that's a real sort of above and below thing. That's the idea that the body, you know, the body of a human is almost like the world tree. it's a macro-micro thing, which is obviously very hermetic in that sense. And so cosmologically speaking, the world tree and the body is the center of what I do. And that's not like a solipsism. That's not saying, oh, I am all that is, and I can rule over everything with an iron fist. That is essentially saying that everything and everywhere you need to go and everything you do, you have to do in your body, in the way you interface with the world. Philosophically, all our senses and everything, they're all tied into our physical body. You could argue about out-of-body experiences. You could argue about, traveling to mystic realms, spirit flight, all you like. But the fact of the matter is that you're still passing them through biological and psychological frameworks which are based around your body. And this is why I spent some time as a chaos magician, taking things apart, really reducing them to see what worked. And ultimately, there's loads of models in chaos magic. There's the energy model, there's the spirit model, there's the information model, and ultimately the one that jived most with my lived experience is the idea that there are, although this is all to a certain extent inside my head, the entire world is inside my head, just like your entire world and cosmos is inside your head, and we occasionally overlap, which is what writing and things and communication does, is when we connect these worlds together.
Right.
Which is why magic is like so important, because it's about connecting yourself to all these other worlds and all these other intelligences and learning things from these potentially non-human intelligences. Because frankly, when you learn things from stuff that ain't human, you get a completely new perspective. And part of the joy of magic sometimes is realizing I can do this, and like not many people who don't study magic know that you can do this. And the reason that people learn this is because they were taught by the spirits and had the actual experience.
Right.
So the cosmology in my framework is that essentially everything is alive. But there are, so I guess you could call me animist, but that has certain connotations.
Right. Like what's animating, right?
Yeah. And I would say that the model I use is consciousness-based, but not all consciousness is human, shall we say so. And there are different levels, different types, and that's fine. The cosmos is completely full of variety. I was reading an article the other day that says crows can understand analogy. I'm like,
yeah.
And we've been sitting here for hundreds of years going, oh no, humans, we're the top dog, and it's like, not really. Sort of, there are different kinds of intelligences that we can learn from, different kinds of beings, and our connections to the world get atrophied if we don't acknowledge those other beings.
Right, and it's through those other beings that we even can exercise and learn how to see through those other senses to our interconnectedness. Basically that's like the only technique that works, isn't it? In my experience, I never could see the invisible world around me that that we do experience through senses beyond the five. Before I started conjuring spirits and bumping elbows with them.
Yeah, I would say the world is full of spirits, and or as I term them, whites, which covers a multitude. It's an old English term which covers a multitude of conscious beings. But the world is full of them, and not only that. It's as I've said before, the world is full of them, and the world is full of wizards. Once you start looking for these things, once you start really expanding your horizons, you'll trip over them. They're everywhere, and once you realize they're everywhere, you're like, oh shit, I should probably start being nice to my neighbors, because you don't want to be the dick who's, crapping on the guy who lives next door,
right?
Because that's going to annoy him, and you don't want the guy who lives next door to be pissed off with you because he might decide to, do the equivalent of steal your mail,
right?
Or piss in your water supply, or something like that. If you piss him off, it's bad. Be right with the people that are the people or the persons in your life. Be kind to the spirits, and this is where I depart somewhat from traditional, and I use the word commas, Renaissance stuff, where you get people going, oh, I will command this spirit.
Yeah.
You need to develop it. You said it on one of your the Soma webinar that you did with Aaron. and various other people. You know, you have to build this relationship with these guys.
Right.
And it doesn't mean, you know, it literally doesn't mean, and don't let anybody tell you that it means they're all friendly.
Right.
You know, they're not.
Not by the way we understand the word friendly, for sure. You know, they're not tame. You know, it's not. They aren't your friends, but they're all people you can learn from. You know, just like different people in different neighborhoods around town here in Minneapolis. You can learn something from everyone, whether they're the college students or the I don't know, the scary people. You know, the people who are just at the edges and obviously insane. They've got things to talk about too. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the key point for me. And this is why I have, I suppose, a relationship with Odin, which is he's the Norse god of, you know, searching for knowledge. He's the wandering wizard. He hangs himself on a tree for 9 nights, rips out his eye. You know, he's pretty heavy for knowing and learning and things like that. And yeah, to go and to learn, because from learning from other beings, from other people, you learn about yourself. You form relationships, and the most important thing to me is that, again, to realize that we are part of this holistic whole. And that includes, for me, the dead, because the dead folks are, whether or not they're your direct ancestors, you would not be here without them. You would not exist without a whole chunk of dead folks. And those dead folks, you know, some of them disappear, some of them vanish, some of them go elsewhere, some of them hang around, some of them are pissed, some of them are not, you know. And it's about a living idea. And the idea that I mean, this is a hobby horse of mine, as I'm sure you know, that we as a culture are like, oh shit, death, either, it's awesome, and we're going to be horribly goth about that. And I should point out, I have nothing against goths, some of my best friends are goths, it's all awesome. But, you know, death is something to be avoided, you know, getting old and dying, and no, these are parts of life. These are parts of life, which experiences we must have. And in my personal experiences, the dead folk which hang around, who are amenable to contact and hanging out with you, some of them are like normal people. They're not like grand high poobahs. You don't, you know, shuffle off your mortal coil and become instantly
brilliant, enlightened.
The greatest thing. Yeah, well, some people do, but they're kind of rare. But
they worked on it before they died.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, it's like those people who have near-death experiences. You know, they'll, you know, be going about their everyday life, and they will have a near-death experience, and like come back and manage to get, and they'll go like, I've got an entirely new perspective, and the shit that I thought was important, it isn't really important at all. Fuck, I'm going to go now live my life, you know, as best and as truly as I can.
Right.
And in my experience, some of the dead folk have an extra level of perspective because they're dead and they're not coming back to a certain degree.
Right.
And they have another perspective which they can pass on to you, and you can learn stuff from them. So, you know, it's all about the whole, and I mean, we were talking on Facebook about how, you know, your point about Hermetics has this, you know, as above, so below, but it might as well be as below, so above. And I think that's the key point, is that we are in this world, if we want, and this is the thing, to learn and to experience.
Right.
And you put it as having fun, and I would say I would moderate that personally in my experience, because there's a hell of a lot of things which aren't fun, but I agree that's probably a disagreement of a vocabulary.
It's semantics, yeah.
But there are people, there are people in the world who, you know, don't want to learn, and don't want to do this magic stuff, and I'm like, that's totally cool.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody wants to go and do magic.
Right.
You should do magic now, because otherwise you're a stupid person. I actually think people who study magic are pretty damn stupid, because we're, you know, pushing ourselves and possibly, you know, it's going to blow up in our faces. Or perhaps our houses are going to burn down. You know?
Well, that's okay. It was an experiment. It worked. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that's the thing. I have a, you know, I don't have a problem with people who don't believe in the fact that everything's alive. I'm like, cool, that's your perception. But my lived experience is completely different to that. My lived experience says that if I want to, I can sit down and breathe and meditate, and I can reach out, and I can, even for a moment, and often the thing is, you know, people go, oh, I only experienced it for a split second.
Great, that's awesome.
That's okay.
Great.
That's okay, because that split second, it could be that seed, which totally and utterly changes your life.
Right, and it gives you the experience to to know that it's possible, and after you've had that taste of it, you want more, you know? And that's what I think it is for, in my experience, the really good magicians are the ones who go after this stuff because we get hooked on it like crack, you know? It's...
Yeah, I mean, some people, I will admit, are, you know, can turn into the junkies, you know, not in the you know...
I mean in a good way.
You know, yeah, I don't mean that in a particularly bad way, but in a, I've got to get the next hit, I've got to pick up this new system because I need my brain blown open because the system and the way I'm working.
Right.
I had these experiences in the beginning, but actually I've been doing it for 3 months now and nothing really awesome's happened, so clearly the system doesn't work.
That's not quite what I meant.
No, I know, but I figured it was something that you need to...
Explain.
We need to raise because I think seeking out, for want of a better word, peak states is fine, is okay, if you are trying to integrate them into, as you and Jason were saying the other week, you know, integrate that into a state rather than just a state, you know, so something that influences your life all the way through. If you're just going, ooh, you know, peak state, you know, bouncing up and down without moving, shall we say, without integrating, then it becomes difficult.
Right. It seems like for that to happen, it's got to be, in my opinion, and I'm kind of an asshole, but for it to be just an up and down kind of thing, the person can't be spending a lot of time talking to the spirits. You know, it's like they're more interested in just kind of walking by them, which is awesome. I understand, right? But why just walk by them when you can sit down and listen to them? Because once you start listening to them and interacting with them on a more a deeper level, you start picking up their habits, their patterns of behavior, you know, their talents and skills sort of manifest in your own life, and it becomes a process where you can. I'm trying to remember how you put it on that conversation on Facebook the other day with when we were talking about not just unmanifest versus manifest, but actually that which is within is bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah, it's an upwelling, you know, and that's a key point. All for you know, in my experience, and I maybe again this is why I use the moniker, you know, bearded frothy madman, because I'm fairly sure that I'm crazy. Okay, so and I say this many times. People go, no, well, you've actually got your head screwed on. I'm like, yeah, I don't talk about stuff. You know?
I think you're completely mad. Just so you know, you're obviously nuts.
Yeah, and you know, the every phenomenon, no matter how ephemeral, has, in my view, a link or a possibility to connect you to a primordial, you know, state of connection. So yeah, you can be sitting there drinking your coffee on a morning, and you'll be thinking, oh God, I've got to go to work. And we've all been there, where occasionally something will catch us completely off guard, and we'll be like, well, you know, I hadn't thought of that, and your webcam's disappeared, so I'm hoping you're still there.
I'm still here. Sorry, I'll be back in a sec.
No, that's fine. I was just like, is the whole thing crashing? But you know, the phenomena, and you can be sitting there drinking your coffee, and something can strike you, and suddenly you start seeing the world in a new way. And a lot of what I believe magic to be is about training your consciousness to get the most out of those moments, to be sitting there and, yeah, okay, I've got a poetic, you know, yen to things, but the way sometimes the light will fall through the trees, or, you know, the way, you know, your partner's smile will suddenly make you go, oh, holy shit, and that's not a relationship thing, but that's a, you know, we are something so much bigger than we thought we were, and the most ordinary thing is capable of producing that in a magician if you've trained your awareness to receive that sort of thing.
So when I say things So when I say things like it's fun, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Is that when you've experienced it and you've trained yourself to go up a notch on given the opportunity, like you say, we're not completely in control of everything, you know. But when the opportunity to feel that. I don't want to use the word transcendent, but basically that transcendent joy in the moment, you know, that is something that we get to do as magicians, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I think the argument over transcendent and immanent is a really interesting argument. because it proves how much language and culture influences perception, and that's always really interesting to me. But the connection of shared experiences, I mean, we may disagree on points purely due to semantics, but I'm fairly sure we also disagree on some other things which aren't just semantics, and that's totally cool.
Probably politics.
But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite that hippie territory myself, but there we go. Anyway, you know, we're really looking at these things, and people say, oh yeah, the transcendent is above, and other people are like, oh no, the immanent's right in there. It's like, fuck it.
Right.
This vocabulary is created by people who are not
doing it.
Magicians.
Yeah.
It might have been created by magicians way back when, and this is my, you know, my personal hobby horse, because I studied philosophy at university and you know, did postgrad work and stuff like that. And, you know, there's very much evidence that the early, you know, philosophers were actually, you know, mystics and at least members of mystery cults. And a lot of the stuff's been, you know, created as a dry, rational shit. And I'm like, no, some of these guys were healers and magicians, and some of them may even have crossovers with the, you know, with the actual Goes for whom Goetia name. And, you know, so the language is a limiting thing. I mean, I once heard Frate UD refer to it as contouring. You know, it's like being contoured on a map. There are boundaries that are inflicted by language, and sometimes you need, and I'm not putting myself up here, but you need the poetic people to break the jargon and go, here is a buttload of imagery, here is a buttload of lived experience, and yes, we've been arguing over these points, but actually it's just linguistic, because we all recognize when we read or hear those stories, or those experiences, we all know.
And the poets are pointing the way in the appropriate words and phrases to actually convey the feeling. You know, that's what makes you a poet versus me a hack. You know, you can hear it in the tone in your writing in a way that I don't know. I just come across as sarcastic, I guess. So I don't know.
I think that the interesting thing that I think people forget, to a certain extent, is that before writing, all the knowledge was passed on orally. You know, and this ties into some of the points about myth. And people think these days, myth isn't real. Myth is just a way of communicating, you know, universal truths or truths about culture. It is, but it's also real. It's also a fundamental part of the lived experience of a people and of a culture. And you can see it at, say, I don't know, a rock concert, you know, or even classical music performance, where you have the performers, and just for those 90 minutes, those 2 hours, the audience and the performer are incredible. They're yoked together. I mean, it's kind of yoga. If you're talking about yoga in the sense of yoking people and yoking your body to various asanas and things like that, it yokes the performer and the audience together. And I mean, there have been studies which suggest that the human brain, you know, you get into a story, you start literally identifying not only with the characters, but, you know, your brain starts anticipating and predicting, and there's no difference once you're in the story. And that, for me, is the importance of myth. That is, for me, is the importance of poetry. That it unbinds you from time. You've got a linear time going on here, you know? And I mean, last night I was out with my heathen friends, and we were doing what we do, which is, on the 20th, we have this thing called the Mother Night, which is essentially us saluting the female ancestors that we bear, but it's also gathering around the fire and drinking mead and toasting to gods and spirits. And you sit there and go, oh, ritualized drinking is fucking awesome, right? Because, you know, we're obviously drinking now and having a conversation, so obviously this is a ritualized drinking thing. But, you know, we're drinking out in Meadhorn. And the thing is, when you're standing there by the fire out in the dark, and frankly it's a little bit nippy up here, but, you know, there we go, you are taking part in a ritual. You are taking part not only in a healing ritual, you're taking part in the fact that as long as we've been brewing alcohol, you know, as long as we've been brewing intoxicants, there have been people gathering by a fire and talking to each other from the heart, and perhaps saluting their dead ancestors.
Exactly.
You know?
Or whatever forces it was there were that were working together to bring them to that moment of joy around the fire with our tribe, you know, or the tribe of the moment, if nothing else, you know.
And when you consider that from a magical perspective, you are participating in something that is completely vast. You are entering into, and moments like that, and this is why I say that ritual is a kind of dream time, and I don't want to offend anybody who has any sort of Australian Aboriginal.
Yeah, it should be known that he's not a racist or a bastard, guys. He just pretends to be a bastard online, but really, in real life, he's just a human being who cares a lot about the stuff that he talks about, so don't take offense.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
And I'm basically just saying that the idea of a dreaming mythic time being the thing that creates the world we know is something, it's very, very old as far as humans are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Aborigines have been around there in Australia for 40,000 years, and I'm not saying it's the same across culture, but the idea that culture is actually nourished by this, what we these days would call myth. You know, that these realms where the gods and the spirits happen in the stories are as real for the fleeting moment, perhaps, of telling a story, or perhaps being independent. For me, is neither here nor there, because once the story is told,
yeah,
it is happening.
And when the person hearing this story is identifying with the experience, regardless of its external validity, whatever, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead. Right on.
No,
yeah, that.
It's totally cool. And there's I must admit, I'm a big fan of the sadly cancelled Hellblazer comic because I'm a giant geek. And there's a line in there from from the main character, John Constantine. Constantine. I've been watching the TV show, and you Americans get the name wrong.
Yeah, but
Constantine.
We're like a virus.
Yeah, Constantine is that, you know, he says something. Forgive me for mangling it, folks, if you're as much fans as I am, but he says, you know, most people say perception is 9/10 of the law. In my trade, as a magician, it's 11/10. You know, and I really think that's important, because that point where you go beyond the ordinary sense of self, you say, okay, for now, just for now, for this, I am going to, and this may be a hangover from my chaos magic days when I can linguistically explain it from a, you know, sort of paradigm thing, but just for now, I am going to act as if this is completely true. Mm-hmm. And you know what? When you do that, bang, stuff bounces back.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, maybe it is real, and well, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But ultimately, who cares?
Yeah, and this is why I'm about lived experience a great deal, because I have had totally. I think every magician, if they've been doing it long enough, has one totally and utterly inexplicable experience in their life.
At least.
And no matter how much you try and rationalize it, it just doesn't quite cover it.
Right.
You know,
but none of the. It's never quite enough to be like objectively provable to anybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my case, the one that I have never ever been able to explain actually involved some friends of mine calling me up at 3 in the morning and going, so my friend, you know, our other friend had this prophetic dream about, or a dream about, you know, this mate of ours about dying in a car crash. And we were really freaked out by this because we didn't think she was going on any long journeys. But it turns out tomorrow she's going on this really long journey to see her parents. And, well, the details match the dream. We know you're into weird shit. Can you sort of do something about it? So they call me over and it's 3 in the morning and I'm sort of like, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do about this. So I decide, you know what, I'll go old school. I'll use the Rite of the Headless One from the Greek magic papyri to, in its full sort of exorcism mode, to go, you know what, we're gonna make sure that any undue influences which are affecting this person piss off, you know, so that they have a smooth journey. And the people involved were like, well, how can we do this? And I thought, well, it's a bit dodgy, but okay, if you really want in this that doesn't involve, you know, and you really honestly want to put your heart in this, then, and I should explain to people, I'm a little visceral in my magic. I have no problem with blood and bodily fluids. So I basically told them, you know, okay, if you're really in this and you don't know the magical stuff and the words don't get it and you're freaking out, tell you what, one of you is diabetic, prick your finger, put a little bit of blood into this shot glass, like 3 guys, and then we use that as a link, and you wish to help out with this. So I go through the headless one a couple of times, and the shot glass is here, and I'm like, there we go, that's fine. And then we set it aside, go back to normal business, and this shot glass is just on the table, and we're like, yeah, we should clear that up, and we get distracted. And next time we look at the table, the shot glass is on the side, and we're like, oh crap, there's probably blood on the carpet now, except that the shot glass is empty, completely clean.
So, so the offering was accepted.
The offering was definitely accepted, and the lesson question got to our parents. And I never made any claim as to whether it worked or not. The thing that freaks me out is that there was blood in that shot glass, and the thing was completely clean. And it is one of those when I feel that essential doubt. It is that whole
right.
There was ritual, and it wasn't. There wasn't even any staining in the glass.
Yeah.
And that just completely violates known laws of physics.
Right.
Essentially, it just and it's a tiny thing. It really is. It's not like I've won the lottery.
But it is. It's everything. It's very small, but it's yeah.
Yeah, and it's that. And the thing is, I think as a magician, you end up training yourself, if you do it long enough, to notice those tiny bits. You start noticing that the universe is constantly trying to. I mean, it's partly so through the abyss, isn't it? Taking everything as a communication for the universe. You start noticing that the universe wants to talk to you.
Right.
The cosmos, as a living thing, has this. You could go, oh, you're saying humans are special. I think everything wants to communicate with everything else.
Right.
Yeah, there's bits of it that want to kill the other bits, but you know what? That's a form of communication.
That is exactly. That's exactly communication. And the parts that want to die. I mean, you don't get born a wildebeest in Africa if you have like this will to be a fucking predator. It doesn't work that way. Anyway.
But I think the key point with that is, I know some people say, so you're basically saying I wanted suffering. And I would say that's not strictly what we're saying here. What we're saying is that everything that happens, it's not some new age, everything happens for a reason. What we're saying is stuff happens, shit happens.
Right.
But the shit, and this is the bit where we go alchemical, shit happens, but the shit is gold.
Yes.
Okay, the shit and the gold are the same thing.
Yes.
That's alchemy.
All right, yeah.
You just need to alter you need to alter your consciousness. But some people can't, and I'm not saying that they're bad for it. Some people suffer horrible things, and it's not possible for them to look at it in a way that went, actually that helped me learn something. That's fine, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying that you didn't suffer unspeakable things. But in my experience, I should probably explain to people, I was born, disabled. I have brain damage. I have cerebral palsy. I use a wheelchair. So I'm aware that my perception on suffering and weirdness may be entirely due to the interestingness of my own personal situation.
Honestly, I always forget that about you.
Well,
I mean,
it's just, yeah, carry on.
You know what I mean? I hope you understand what I'm saying when it doesn't come through in your writing. It doesn't come through in your, when you make a point to mention it, I see it and I recognize it and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot,
Yeah.
But it's not, you're not defined by it in any way, shape, or form. It's not I think it's been a very defining aspect of your existence, but...
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the key point. I remember in my early 20s being like, I'm studying magic, but half of these magical things involve, shenanigans and ritual waggling of stuff and pacing. And I could do it all in my head, but it doesn't feel very real. I mean, it feels real when I do it in my head, but I've got to be careful that it's not mental masturbation.
Right.
So I've got to put a shout out here to the crazy-ass dinner party / nutballness that was and is the Z-List, the collections. Because I remember talking to people there in like the early 2000s going, I need to create some form of cripple magic, okay guys? Because frankly, all this normal magic, it's just irritating and it's getting on my tits, and I can't do this. And I got various responses, and I love those guys to pieces.
Oh, I thought, I was losing my shit for a moment there. Yeah, that was great.
It's fine. But, I mean, it's one of those things, and every magic. You know, and this is the key point. You can learn shit from books. You really can. But up to a point, the books, if you do it properly, the books, you end up going off the map.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of those things where I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I don't need a teacher, or I don't need a... I'm like, fine, you don't need a teacher to do what you want. But there are people who, if you pay attention, will teach you things. And some people will teach you things without realizing it, you know, and you will learn from them without realizing it. And some people will deliberately teach you things, and you will learn from them. And that's the point. You can study these old books all your life. You can study Norse Smith or Heathen Blah, or try and reconstruct the, you know, the ancient religion of your ancestors up to a point. But ultimately, it's about integrating your experience with these sources and these experiences and creating something new. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I often thinking about Crowley and the word of Omegas, and I'm not making any claims to Omegas or anything, but the uttering of a word, as far as I can work it out, and you can correct me being in the OTO and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But the uttering of the word is that point at which the magician, the Magus, says, this is the thing by which I live my life. This is my magic. This is my way of existing. This is my thing that I embody.
Right, and also it is true for everybody else who's going to hear my word and understand it as a magical utterance. It's not, this is you know, the whole Crowley says will is the word for everybody for the eon, whatever. That's, I agree, but that's not like every other magician in the eon is going to utter a new word and it's going to change reality, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, like, you know, for me, I love the word joy. I think joy is something that is my, if I were to say a word, you know. So yeah, that would be, it's in my opinion, as a dutiful dues paid OTO fucking Thelemite and AA member and all that stuff, you know. Yeah, the Magus says his word, and it is exactly what you said. It's how they are best represented in, you know, X number of letters within one lifetime, if you had to sum it up. And I really hope you get the subtext. That's kind of how I see the word.
I know what you mean. I think that the problem people have, most magicians I know are fairly anti-authoritarian in the sense of they don't want people telling them what the fuck to do.
Well, right, because we've been through enough. We don't have to put up with their shit. I mean,
yeah, and that's to a point. I think that's totally cool. But in my, it's that interesting balancing act that I always find, where in order to, it's like if you, let's put it again in a metaphorical sense. You have somebody who leaves the village either exiled or they decide to leave because they don't feel like they fit. And they go out into the dark and deep woods. And in the dark and deep woods, they realize it's full of things. They realize it's full of beings. And some of them want to eat them. And they're like, oh, fuck. You know, this wants to eat me. I could go home. But they'll reject me there anyway and probably throw stones at me. Or whatever. Or I will starve my soul to death slowly through this ordinary mundanity or whatever. Or, you know, it doesn't really matter. Basically, going back to the village is not an option. And you're in the woods, and it's full of stuff, and some of it wants to kill you, and some of it's just really curious, and if you fall asleep passing out after being, you know, on watch for the things that are trying to kill you for 48 hours, you may get woken up by the disturbing sensation of something licking you, like an animal nose, and you'll be freaked out for a bit, and you're like, oh no, this thing is just trying to work out what you are. But ultimately, there's going to come a point where you meet something in the woods, and it's going to change you. Your experience in the woods changes you. And you can never, ever, I mean, I've said this before, you can never, ever go home again.
right.
Because who you were is totally annihilated, totally destroyed,
And
then reconstituted by your contact with that thing. And you might look the same, you might even do some of the same things, but you are not the same.
right.
And this is why, mythically, magicians and weirdos and witches and all these things were ambiguous. Because sometimes they look like you. Sometimes they walk down the same street as you, but they're not like you. And that's not an elitist thing. That's just saying their lived experience has altered them, you know, beyond recognition in some way. It's not like they're totally, completely exhibiting a makeover. Some core part of them is just flipped.
Fundamentally changed. So,
yeah,
all right, so when you think about the great work of the Western mystery tradition, ceremonial, alchemical, whatever, Hermetic stuff, the entire great work is about what you just said. It's about that one moment of fundamental change that changes everything, you know? And the first one is like super intense, and oh my God, you have now gotten knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, you know, or whatever kind of silly nonsense goes along with it. But, you know, that first moment where everything is like, oh, no more, no, oh, you know, like the first time you ever, I assume you've taken LSD.
Yep.
All right.
I will freely admit online. In my younger days
right.
in university, I will freely admit to that, as I'm fairly sure if you read my writings, you can pretty much pick that up.
Right. I kind of assumed that was so. But, you know, before acid and after acid was like a big change in my life, right? There was that moment, and then there was, you know, before sex or after sex, you know, and then there was, well, actually, there might have been sex before acid, but I don't really think the progression is what we're talking about. But no, the whole transition point from before and after, there was this moment, that pivot from which on this side I'm able to grunt and strain, and on this side I'm able to completely change the world. You know, there's that pivotal moment, you know, and that's like the entire point of what Hermetics is all about for me. You know, I look at the Emerald Tablet, it's about here's all this mystery shit that you don't understand, and then you're born, and then you ascend through the spheres and return in power, you know, or as you said on that comment thread the other day, you know, you go through you used a really fancy word about going through the chthonic worlds and what was it?
You know, it's catabiosis.
Yeah.
Going into the underworld. It's Greek.
Right.
And I think that's the key point as well, because I'm not saying, and please nobody say that I'm saying that everybody is, all magicians are doing exactly the same thing. They're not. But there is that point at which you become something different. And this is why I think difference is the mark of the divine. Why variety, as they say, is the spice of life. Why I find, you know, going back to what you said earlier, why I find racism a little odd.
Boring.
You know, I think it's part of it is embedded in our culture, but difference, magic is difference, because it's one of those interesting bits that I totally agree with Gordon White on RuneSoup, is the idea of having, you know, magic as a completely repeatable result every single time that's going to come out exactly the same as every single time. It doesn't work. You know, it's like, what are you going to do, you know, oh yeah, science, you must do it through scientific method. I have no problem with scientific method. I think it's great, we learned a shit ton. But that implies that the result is going to be the same every single time. And the fact is, everything moves, everything changes, so it's not going to be exactly the same, and that's going to get screwed up by the rigor, shall we say, of the scientific method.
Okay.
Which means, honestly, for a shit ton of magic, we're doing stuff by the seat of our pants. We have these rough maps, these really rough maps.
All right.
Some of which
I got it. I would like to interrupt you, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll just pour
okay.
No, pour more whiskey, it's fine.
It's just for a moment. All right, so science has, what we think of as science is that they have this overarching plan and they understand what they're going to do and it's repeatable every time. You know, like, it is officially real all the time. And that's the entire fucking Catholic Church bullshit, papal authority crap. In real scientist labs, it's not, we do the same thing every time. It's we're trying to understand this thing, and every time we perform the experiment, we're doing it slightly differently so that we can actually get to the final data. You know, and the final data is just going to be what we use to get funding so we can get more money to continue our research, right? You know, and I think that this misunderstanding that science is somehow repeatable results and everybody is focused on doing the same thing the same way every time, time after time, to demonstrate the validity of our point, you know, it's not true in science, and it's not true in magic, and it's not true for any of us. And if people ever get stuck in the idea that they're they have to keep doing the same thing that other people did to get the same results. You don't, and that's not the scientific method. The actual scientific method in practice is, yesterday we sliced it this thick and had to adjust the sensor up a little bit. So today let's just keep them all the same thickness so we can keep the sensor in the same place and actually observe data and not waste time with bullshit. And
oh, yeah.
I live with a scientist, if you can't tell. And I just think that we have this mythology formed around the idea of the scientific method that is not any more accurate than the idea in the 17th century was about what goes on in theological groups, and that the church has a doctrine and a stance and a method and a practice. It doesn't, the idea that our tribe has an overarching, I don't know what the word is, like a model of interfacing with the things we actually experience. We don't. There's no secret cult in our society that is as simple as, I don't know, the idea that every time somebody wants to prove something, they do the same thing the last person did.
Yeah, and I think, and again, as I said, I'm not down on science at all. I was going to study a physics degree until I realised that I couldn't crunch numbers for another 4 years. But I love science purely for its urge to go out and explore the world. I think is where science and magic meet. Is this whole, let's go out and explore the world and see how it works. But I think there is a human tendency to reduce these things. So the popular discourse on science is incredibly reductionist. The popular discourse on certain forms of magic is even reductionist, where people go, it's just psychological. To me, that's reductionist because it's actually dismissive. And many of these models, these dogmas, were created by people either who were aware that not everybody could get what was exactly going on until they directly experienced it. So they constructed something that would be good enough to draw people in and then give them the direct experience, which is why you have mystery cults with inner and outer circles.
Right.
You see what I mean? Because you were like, yeah, you do these rituals, it's great, and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is how the reality works, and then you get inducted into the core mystery, or the inner circle, or whatever, and yeah, actually all that stuff we told you on the outer level, it's kind of bullshit, so we got you thinking a certain way, and now you can actually experience this.
Sort of.
And now you can go and do whatever the hell you like, because you've actually had this true mystery.
Right.
And I think the same applies with the outer mysteries, quotes, of what we perceive as science, because popular science is built for non-scientists, but the reason it's created is to get people thinking about the world,
right?
To inspire more people.
So
The
people who can get past the Facebook science, I fucking love science article and actually look at the things that it's linking to and see the studies, then they might actually do some actual useful work or spend their money more responsibly.
Yeah, I think that's the key point is that we don't know shit. It goes back to Socrates, okay? We don't know shit. Greatest wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. And then you compare that with what was supposedly inscribed over the gateway to the Temple of Delphi, which is know thyself. Or however you fucking pronounce it. And I apologize to everybody for the swearing, but I feel like totally that know thyself is the greatest maxim one should live by.
Okay, so we're officially 1 hour into the conversation, and I'm also concerned about my slurring. Just for the record, if anybody's keeping track, we're still drinking and we're having a good time. I hope you are too.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, don't worry about the slurring.
No, it's
Just fuck them if they can't take a joke.
Yeah, no, and so knowing thyself is the important thing, because once you know yourself, you know, and that's the work of a lifetime. Don't let me ever be perceived as saying, oh, I know myself. So, no, I have, I think it was Walt Whitman. I have multitudes in here. It's going to take several probably lifetimes to, even get quarter way down to what I actually am. I don't know.
Well,
but the fact of the matter is, sorry.
No, I on the other hand, also, don't sell yourself short, because...
Oh, I'm not selling myself short. I'm just saying that I am vast and terrible, and so are you.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things where I am... I think one of the things that I learned in magic is that there is always more. There is always more depth. It goes down forever.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea that you can go through 7 spheres and then go through the 8th and then, like, into the 9th, like, in my personal thing, it's not like it ever stops, because the core thing about Hermetics is the Emerald Tablet, right? And it's all, you arise through the spheres, whatever, and then you descend in power to create the world, you know? And I'm not saying you have, absolute control over over the entire world. You know, there are things that happen beyond your control, but you have influence over every aspect of your existence. You know, and the whole thing that we do is sort of about not even experiencing. All right, so I'm a total hypocrite. You know, just.
I think the best people are, and it's okay to acknowledge.
Well,
the key point is if you acknowledge the fact that you're a hypocrite. If you don't, then you're an asshole. But
well,
if you do, you're okay.
It depends on what day of the week it is. So today I'm a hypocrite because I've been drinking, and I'm going to be honest. You know, the Seven Spheres book that I wrote is all about, you know, ascending through the spheres and kind of like touching on the spirits that we conjure and talk to, that, you know, the relationship kind of thing that you can establish in each of the spheres, or whatever you want to call it, the branches of Yggdrasil. Well, I like that idea. I'll make it up as I go along now, because you put...
Hey, fuck it, nobody cares. Most magicians are actually making it up as they go along. Anybody who tells you not is lying.
Oh my God! You know, that argument last a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, with you, Craig. You know that guy, Craig? Him?
Yeah, I do quite well, actually.
Yeah, him and Jake. So we were all talking about that stuff, and that's why we're talking today. But you know, I lost it. Totally lost my point.
Oh no!
That happens sometimes. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh shit!
You're talking about the you know, you were going to be honest about the Seven Spheres.
Oh yeah. Right. Thanks. So the whole Seven Spheres thing is not about. I present it like it's all about, you know, acquiring all these powers and understanding who you are and where you came from in the Hermetic system, right? But it's secretly all about getting people to conjure the spirits and interact with them. You know, I mean.
You heard it here first, folks.
Well, us and the other 7 or 6 people.
Really?
No, but
that's all right. Well, we get more, you know, maybe more people listening to it on the recording.
Yeah.
And if you don't, well, the universe is safe from our drunken rambling.
Well,
so,
exactly. But I mean, all right. So if I can get people to do the kind of things that I did, the people who can understand what I'm saying and kind of put it into practice, you know, I'm really excited about the fact that they get to, if they experience the things I experienced, have a really good time. You know, they're gonna
yeah.
touch and taste and feel and drink and smoke and whatever of every moment that I've had the joyful experiences of. You know,
Yeah.
it's.
And I mean, the thing is that some of those joyful experiences, you know, they vary from person to person. So
Oh yeah.
nobody's going to get the patented RO experience, because unless, you know, they're not telling you things, they're not actually living in your head.
Wait.
And
Can I actually patent the RO experience?
yeah, if you want, fuck it. You know, the RO experience is if you want to go to the U.S. Patent Office and write out a patent, you can. I have no problem with that.
Well, thank you for your permission. But all right. So anyway, I never thought about it that way. No, I don't expect anybody to have the same thing I had, but I want people to fucking try. You know, get off your ass and do some fucking magic, for fuck's sake. I don't think it's asking too much.
Yeah, and I think the key point with I guess with magic and with life is that it's a verb, okay?
Yes.
It's a fucking verb. You could argue that it comes from Persian. You could argue that there are Indo-European cognates all over the place. There's suggestions that, if I remember correctly, there are the word might, as in mighty, or may, comes from the same similar sort of cognates. So, you know, the idea that magic makes you mighty is this whole idea of, yeah, actually you can pull off more. It's not that you are allowed, it's just that you have more possibilities open to you.
Right.
Through the use of magic.
Because
and
we practice it.
Yeah, and the magic is about that possibility. When everybody else who doesn't practice magic is on a four-lane highway, you happen to know the back routes. You happen to know that actually, if you need to get 700 miles and everybody else is using roads, you happen to have a mate who can get you cheap flights. You know, it's pretty much as simple as that. It's people who know people. Only the people are not necessarily human.
Right. Well, that's the Illuminati fear, right? You know, the fear of the illuminated people is that they actually know someone who knows someone who can get them what they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fear of the Freemasons, it's the fear of everything, is that these guys know something you don't, and because they know something you don't, they can do things and get things that you don't get, and it's not fair.
Well, it's not. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's the key thing. There's this weird thing in our culture where everything has to be, quotes, fair, because obviously people have been oppressed and it's shit, and people should get, you know, a bigger bite of the, people should get a chance to get a bigger bite of the apple. But ultimately, not everybody is equal. It's not fair. So, bluntly, you've got to hustle.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And that's not to say that you don't deserve help, you don't deserve care from other people, you don't deserve community or any of the classic arguments that you might have about welfare or state care or whatever. That's totally irrelevant. The point is that this enables you to go in a different direction. Because, like, in, you know, the classic case, and I know I keep coming back to your house burning down, but that is like one of the key points. I remember when I first heard about you, it was like, oh, this guy, you know, got magic that works, but it cost him his house. So, you know, it's like, whoa, that's a hardcore thing.
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong. You got pretty much what you asked for in the insurance payment. Am I understanding the story right?
100%. I have no defense. It worked. Yeah. I count that as one of my major successes in magic was when I fucked up my entire life and got $4,000.
And that is precisely the key point. In that, yeah, everybody else should be like, okay, I've got to get a new job. I gotta, you know, hustle. I gotta wait for a relative to die or whatever to get $4,000. Magic's like, easiest way is to burn your house down. And that's something you never would have thought about.
Right.
You know, never in a million years. That's a route nobody sane would have taken. Right? They never would have done this. No one would have, you know what? Unless they were totally desperate and deliberately burnt their house. Or whatever. Nobody sane would have come up with that idea. But Magic's like, fuck your sanity. I'm going to do this.
Right. And, you know, and as soon as it happened, the $4,000 was the least of my worries. You know what I mean? And honestly, that was what I really wanted more than anything else, was to not be worried about this $4,000 bill anymore, because the $4,000 bill was making me feel like shit. Well, okay, you know, things could be worse.
Yeah. I mean, that is my I guess my joy of working with this is when so many people are like, oh yeah, I want money, I want wealth, I want love. I'm like, okay, you want these things, and there's nothing wrong with using magic to get them. But really, you should know yourself. You should analyze them and go, am I actually wanting this love because I want to just have loads of hot sex? Or am I having a love because, as well as wanting a lot of hot sex, I actually want somebody to help me feel better about myself?
Time out.
You know?
Time out.
You know? Okay.
All right, so you brought up love magic.
Okay.
All right. It's on you.
Yep.
It's your fault.
Yep.
All right,
yep.
So you're one of the happiest guys I know in your love life.
Yep, pretty much.
Right? So I'm like a little happier than you.
Yeah.
All right, so I think you and I have some insight into how this whole love life thing works and how it all kind of, what it's about, you know?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I'll give you that possibility. I'm not claiming authority.
Well,
for the purposes of this
discussion. Okay, for the purposes of this discussion and for the people who are horny and lonely who have signed on, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, I didn't graduate college. I managed to get through high school in America, which everybody should be able to do if they have an IQ of 70. It's not rocket science, you know? I'm not the most brilliant of guys, but I happen to be with one of the most amazing women on the planet, you know? And, I mean, in terms of, like, science and math and whatever, you know, and just objectively, she's really a cool person, you know, regardless of gender. If you saw who this person was, you'd think, oh, wow, that's an awesome person. And she likes me, you know? And I'm like, yee, you know, I'm super excited about that.
Yep.
But I attribute all of that to my experience in magic. You know, I don't have any kind of qualifications that would make it logical, as it were. You know, but I understood what I wanted in a woman. Oh,
Yeah.
is everything okay?
Yeah. It's just speaking of, love magic, my other half was like, "Where's your wallet?" So, there we go, guys.
Well, not that it's stereotypical, but it's a matter of convenience. But that's kind of the thing I wanted to talk about, in fact, is the practical stuff about, I see, all right, so I offer magical services, and I don't respond to most of the requests I get, because most of the requests I get are about love magic, and won't you bring her back to me? She's cheating on me. No, I won't. Why would I?
Yeah.
Because I hate you, and I don't hate you. I think we could do better, guys. Come on. Or a woman who's like, I have his babies and blah, 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 bring him back to me. And I'm like, no, that's not what you want, and I don't.
I mean, it's interesting because myself and Jack Faust, we sort of don't argue, but the Greek magic papyri has a shit ton of, compulsion spells, and the Defixionis, which is like, send the restless and angry dead to stop this person from sleeping until they come back to me.
Right? I mean,
let their dreams be completely infested with me, let them be completely obsessed, You're like, well, obviously, love magic and money magic have been, core.
Yeah, they're tied. They're pretty much tied across the PGM and whatever.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where these are compulsions, and I'm assuming that they had a decent hit rate, because otherwise they wouldn't have been written down. Quite bluntly, I'm not making an ethical judgment here. I'm just saying that they were probably written down because on some level they probably worked. But for me, again, it ties back to know thyself, right? So if you are you're with a lovely lady, and you have pointed this out. I am also with a lovely lady, and I am very happy with my love life. But the reason that worked for me, I mean, bluntly, I'm a cripple, and societal twitch about disabled people and relationships. There just is, unfortunate as it may be, and ignorant as it may be, and not wishing to brag, I've always, I have had quite enough sex for fun. But this is not because I compelled the restless dead. This is not because I did magic to get laid. This is because I did magic to work on myself.
Exactly.
To enhance and to increase those portions of my life and experience and my sense of self in such a way that I decondition myself. I think the key point about magic is deconditioning yourself.
I agree all the way. I think that's something we should probably talk about more after you make your point.
Yeah, and the love magic thing itself is a lot of the way, people say, there's this classic argument like, oh, if you want to hit on the person you love, be yourself. And that's true, up to a point.
Yeah, if you know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, and that's the key point, because 99% of every person on this planet has been conditioned by society, by media, by their parents, and it's not this is not some evil empire. Well, it is the case of advertising, but anyway, this is not some evil empire trying to tell you that you're shit and should fit into a box. Again, aside from advertising, this is you being taught this thing, and the way I became happy in my love life, and I'll be honest, I have quite heavy-duty self-loathing issues due to a lot of this societal conditioning, and that is a major point that I work on, and that I do magic to deal with and work with and recognize that I am this terrifying, bearded, crazy person. But for some reason, people want to listen to what I got to say and indulge in carnal relations and general social interactions with me.
Well, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
All right, so it's because you understand what it is to be human in a way that most people don't, in my opinion, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Anyway, bring on.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are scared and terrified because their world does not match the world that everybody says should exist. And the key point of magic is learning to use some of your, wording here, learning how to perfect your kingdom.
Well, yeah, because and that's a word game to kind of get people thinking about how they're kind of they're the focus of their experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the key point is you have to learn who you are. I mean, myself again and Jack Frost, we've been screaming at people for years, you're not who you think you are.
All right, well, wait. So what does that mean? You know, I mean, you're not who you think you are.
You're not who you think you are. This is a long sidetrack, and I'm probably going to get murdered for mentioning this. You know, why on the internet by the my usual suspect mates and brothers. But you are not who you think you are. Basically, boils down to the fact that you have been told, or people have been told, who they are. You pick up who you are from your parents. Your parents will tell you this and this and this, and you unconsciously, you know, will absorb some of that. You'll reject some of it because you do. You're not a sponge, but ultimately, things are impressed upon you by the world because you know, and that will shape your thought. You know, that shapes your thought, and it limits your options, right? It limits your options. And when we say you are not who you think you are, this started out because way back when we were arsing around with doing cut-ups, which is a sort of Burroughsian technique based around the Greek magic papyri, because we were like, this shit works. Let's see if we can mess around with it and you know, with Walker's Magic Guide, all kinds of new configurations, create like poetic stuff. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Just saying that.
Wait. I just want to repeat what you just said to me. You would not recommend Burroughs' technique of modernizing Greek magical papyri barbarous names?
I wouldn't recommend it unless you are willing to have things get incredibly weird and sometimes more than a little stressful. Because I'm not in any way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, wait a minute now. All right, so you've just gone beyond the bridges between, like, you know, the normal human being who might admit that maybe magic might be an aspect of existence that reveals more experience, to you just went, like, birds and whistles, it's all perfect, wow! I mean...
Okay, so the thing is, we have done... okay, I won't say we. I have done some things which, strictly speaking, could be considered incredibly stupid.
But also incredibly brilliant. I mean, honestly.
But what I will say is the reason I say I don't recommend this is because it unleashed, shall we say, some toxic things that probably needed lancing and dealing with. It caused significant stress and a lot of terror for all of us involved. And we don't recommend it because, you know, it can cause some serious problems.
Well,
but anyway, we were in I and some friends, of which, you know, Jack will probably kill me for repeatedly mentioning him, because people bug him more than me. It's great.
He deserves it. He totally deserves it. All right, so Jack.
Yeah. Well,
fuck Jack. Yeah. He should be on here too.
Yeah, well, drag him for the next one because he and I do get drunk and drink scotch lots. But anyway, yeah, we experimented a lot. We did a lot of munging together, and because, you know, we were folks of a certain age, we decided we were going to mung in, because like the Occult scene, the Chaos Magic end of things, they like their Lovecraft, you know, so we were munging together some crazy Lovecraftian stuff, and it was strange, you know, strange nomads in the desert worshipping strange altars with wrong angles kind of stuff. And it basically blew up in our faces. We were messing around with this. And we experienced some heavy-duty stuff which is now reverberating and has shaped all our practice even now.
All right, time out.
I was going to carry on and say how this relates to the love spells.
Go ahead.
Okay, fair enough.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to know how old you were when you did that.
23, 24.
Okay.
There was like, I think it was about 23 when I was doing it, and Jack's a couple of years younger than I, and the other folks in question were a couple of years older than me. So we're talking about 25.
Okay.
You know, roughly window period.
But no.
Anyway, and you know, we did this, and one of the key points about Lovecraftian weirdness is this whole horribly racist idea that there's mixing of alien things and human, and we decided we've screwed this racist stuff. We're actually going to go with the alien. And anyway, this catapulted us into some strange imaginal and magical spaces, which don't recommend. Probably 2 out of 10 would not recommend.
Well, yeah, the other 8 are like giving piles of poo in the corner.
Yeah, but anyway, so we did this, and there's this very much this sense of realizing that what is considered human, this wonderful boundary term for human. You say human, people think of Homo sapiens, apes wandering around, and it's a lot bigger than we thought it was. The fact was that this kind of stuff was the stuff that connected us to the root stuff, to the Greek stuff, to the tradition of the Goez and stuff like that, was realizing that we're actually part of a larger whole. And so next time you're having a crappy experience, any crappy experience, it ties back to what you were saying about influence. You can influence a room by purely just sitting in it. Okay? That's physics. You move the air by being in a room. If you're not in that room, the air molecules are different. Okay? And that is the point at which, when we say you are not who you think you are, you have influence. Okay? This is the key point. And when you get into the love magic aspect of things, it's about increasing your influence, increasing the way you show up as you in the world, right? And the more you show up, deeper and more integrated you show up as truly yourself, outside of conditioning, the more attractive you become.
Right, to the person, okay, or the type of person that you're actually most likely to be attracted to. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could have case in point, you could have a thing for incredibly hot goths of any gender. Let's keep it the gender fluid here. But actually, the kind of person that and you think they're really hot, and they are really hot, and maybe you have some really good sex with some goth folks, and it's fantastic. But then you do some work, and you're like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm still not feeling satisfied. The sex is great, the relationship's good, but they kind of explode, or whatever. Or even somebody who's horribly religious. It doesn't really matter. You've got a type. You think you've got a type. You go for this type, and it's great up to a certain point. But they're not scratching that itch. They're not making you feel, again, whole. They're not making you feel integrated, connected. And so you do some more work. And then somebody will crop up who you don't think is your type. Who you suddenly find yourself going, why am I being drawn to this person, right? Why am I being drawn to this person? Why are we always showing up in the same social spaces, the same restaurant, the same blah? And you're like, but I like the hot goth people, and this person is not a hot, goth person. This is a hot, I don't know, pick something else, a hot science nerd of utmost wonder who's always like, yeah, I fucked around with something that could kill people today in a petri dish. Yeah, you're not my type. But slowly, as time goes on, you actually realize, no, I'm actually really attracted to this person. You get involved with that person, and you suddenly find, and this is why I hate the term they complete you, but there is this point where you click.
Right.
And you are both better. You are both better together. And that's the weird thing, because they're not what you thought you wanted.
Right.
And the point about magic is stripping away that shit to find out what you actually want. And this is why I'm not down on people like, yeah, I want $6 million. Cool. If you honestly, truly, with your core self, want $6 million, then go for it.
Right.
Work that magic. But if what you actually want is a job and a amount of money, which means you can just buy whatever the hell you want whenever you want it, and it's not like 6-7 figures a year, but you can live and you can be happy and you can be comfortable and you can be fulfilled, go for that. And so it's that undoing aspect, which is why it's so individualistic. And I find so many people, when they start out magic, they want what everybody else has. And that's fine up to a point, but you should really want what you want, not what they want.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, that requires traveling through the underworld. That's not a thing that we can even begin to scratch the surface of. With the seven sphere stuff that I've been doing, it's I get a lot of IMs, personal messages, whatever, from people who want to talk about their personal experiences with the book, and so many of them are like, wow, Jupiter has really worked so far. I've got all these job opportunities, or a friend of mine had all these wonderful job opportunities come as a result. And I'm like, yeah, great, 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 great. But, ultimately, it's not about that. It's, I feel like I'm kind of, all right, so, I come from a Discordian background more than a chaos magic background, and Eris and the whole tricking people into enlightenment and illumination.
Yeah.
So part of my purpose for the whole thing is to get people to realize that, you can have a good time, if you pay attention to it. And that doesn't mean everything's perfect all the time. It just means that you actually enjoy what you have going on because you understand that that's pretty much why you're here, so.
Yeah. I'm not big on poverty consciousness, but honestly, if you can have if you can as a person, and you need to be a special kind of person, be and have a fulfilling life where, you're literally wandering from place to place, doing the whole cane walk the earth thing, go for it. I mean, but I've been homeless. I've been surfing on couches for 18 months while they sorted out a place for me. It's shitty, and I'm not.
It sucks donkey balls. It is.
I am in no way saying it's this great, wonderful, and the other thing, no, this fucking sucks. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not having your own space. Just crap.
Sucks all the time. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
If that is what you honestly, truly want to do, you want to do the cane stuff, then fine. But undo yourself to the point where you realize that is what you want.
Right, and also accept that is, that's what you're going to get. You get the fucking, the blessings of Cain, as it were. And those are awesome. Those are incredibly awesome in and of themselves, but they are not ever going to be respected by anybody who wears a tie or who salutes Jove in the Jupiter hour on a Thursday, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you and Seth and everybody else are doing G4J stuff, I'm like, that's great. But I personally have, and I'm like, I'm really glad that you guys are talking about all these jobs and successes and stuff. But I'm like, at that particular point when that was all kicking off, I was having this massive Saturnian vibe.
Right. You weren't alone. Hey, I just so you know, what's his name? Bradford? Chris Bradford? Totally.
Oh yeah, I love Chris to pieces.
Me too, so much. But he was going through an incredible Saturn thing, all right, so part of the reason I do this whole interview with people and drink and talk to them is because most people don't understand what it's like to be a magician. And you get it, and I get it. Bradford gets it. He had some shit happen in his life that is none of, I'm not going to talk about online, but his framework was so ready for the things he had to experience in the flesh that when it happened, he managed it like someone, I to this day, I feel, we were talking earlier about that ecstatic moment when you look around and you see everything like super illuminated or whatever. You see the godness of every moment of your aspect. When I think about what Chris went through after his experiences leading up to that moment and going through it and how he responded to it, it's just like, I don't even need my own experiences at that moment, It's like I can just look at that guy and see how he handled it and know that obviously there's something beyond the normal way of relating to things that it's just so useful and meaningful and beautiful. And I'm a Taurus, so the whole beauty thing, I look at you and I think you're one of the most beautiful people I know, I see how Chris has gone through his stuff, and I see nothing but beauty. I see, the bullshit that I went through as as myself, I look back and I'm thinking, well done. It's just there's so much shit we get tossed in our own ways, that
Yeah, and I think that the key point with that is, it's not even building a framework so you can manage it. It's about, again, a friend of mine is fond of saying, it's like piloting, it's like being in a boat, right? And when you're crossing a river or going down a river, people think, it's lovely and idyllic. But in order to do that, first you need to build your boat, right? You need to build your boat so it doesn't leak.
Right.
Right? And then you need to know the currents of the river well enough, because you are constantly going to be making minute adjustments. It's not like you can get in a boat and just go down a river and go, aha, I'm going to cross here, without making those minute judgments. Because the river has its own ideas. The river has its own current, right? But you need to develop a way to work with the current of the river, to work with the flow of the universe, the cosmos, and go, okay, so this is happening, which means I have to do this, right?
Right.
And having a framework, you know, that works beautifully means that I'm not saying you're going to be A-okay every single time when shit goes down, because, you know, we can't control everything, or even, I believe, personally, anything we can only influence it. But you can manage to surf, you can manage to deal with that storm. You can manage to deal with that that wave, because you understand, to use a metaphor, you understand seamanship, you understand how to live on the river.
Right.
You know, and that's a key point. I think that while I'm not going, oh, ancient cultures knew everything, because they had to survive, bluntly, because the world was a lot more hostile, because they didn't have technology and, you know, the internet and cars and, you know, concrete and ways
Yeah.
geographically reshaping the universe. They had to learn to survive, and you would learn, okay, this is hostile, this is not hostile. At certain times it is okay to do this, at certain times it is okay to do that. And because they were rooted, they were literally rooted in the world in which they inhabited, they were able to navigate things which you get a bunch of, you know, 21st century folks and put them in the same situation that those tribes were, they probably, you know, end up killing themselves or eating each other.
Right. Or
apart from the couple who managed to actually go, shit, we've got to survive, let's learn about this. And the thing about learning is you're going to fail. You are going to fail without, you know, without somebody to teach you, without somebody to go, no, you're actually screwing up here.
right.
Then you know, and that's why, to a certain extent, having conversations like this and conversations, and even if you are a part of a tradition that has a teacher, you don't have to cede all authority over to them, but you have to acknowledge, yeah, they've done stuff that you haven't, so they may actually have a point.
Okay, wait a minute. I mean, you just said something. What we've been through is like entirely about giving people heads up. You know, you've been there, you've done that, you know what it feels like. It's great and it's awesome and it sucks and it sucks. You know, but it's a thing and it's worth it. You know, that's pretty much the entire point of everything I want to do with the rest of my hermetic or magical or whatever existence. You know, this whole online Rufus Opus thing. I don't give a shit. You know, I just want people to know that this is awesome and what we do is fun.
Well, you know, and I don't mean this in any way a pejorative sense, but you are a magic evangelist. And you spread the good news, my friend.
Well, I do not take that in any way as a insult. I think that's totally the best compliment. You know, that's all I care about. I want people who can understand how cool this kind of existence is. Anybody who can experience the pleasures that we've had from our experiences, our experiments, our terrible, terrible fucking failures across the fucking board, you know?
Yeah.
Anybody who can get some kind of joy out of that, you know, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. That's all I care about, you know? And the rest of the people, they can go fuck themselves. And there are a lot of those.
That is the difference between you and I. You are happy to preach. I am grumpy until such time as the inspiration hits me, and then I'm like, oh, no, I froze. And then, you know, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything until, you know, that the hammer comes down and something like, oh, okay, you know, the bewildered, slightly frightened poet has this sort of like, oh shit, the onrush has hit me. Right, I must talk about this. You know,
right.
I must front a little and live in the woods. And then I read back some of my stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I knew that, but I didn't know that until I frothed about this.
All right. So yeah, I'm really happy to be the magnifying glass that gets to be the I don't know, the whole Logan Hilliard thing. God bless him.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. The whole Espiklarios thing is useful, you know. And if I get to be the evangelist, I'm like, hey guys, guess what? You know, you can do better than your bullshit fucking sorry ass life. Guess why? Because all these people are doing it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
If I get to be that person, that's fine. I'm really happy that I get to magnify. I get to point out people like you who are doing it. And the whole Jake Stratton Kent thing. He's awesome. I love him so much.
It's one of these things, and I should possibly, this is my Libra side, adding, caution in, I suppose, in that, yeah, I have met people who have totally blown themselves up, totally burned out, and gone completely nuts from doing magic. And you know what? That's fine, because, frankly, I am, by definition, not a very kind person. Part of what I do in magic is training myself to be kind to people. Okay? That is something I massively work on. Because most of the time, I'm like, fuck them all, I hate them.
Yes, fuck them all, because fuck them all, and fuck them.
Yeah. And so I sit there and I'm going to say, magic is not for everyone, but there's a whole bunch of people, and it ties back to what you're saying about, there are people who will hear the word of the magus, or the word of a magician, not even the magus, that's a particular thing, but the word of a magician, where their words or their actions, or even, just standing in a room, suddenly you can be in a room with somebody who knows their shit, and they can be doing something, and like suddenly this thing clicks in your back of your head, and you're like, whoa, that works. I don't know what they've done. They could be talking about, how they fish, or how they chop wood, or how they, had sex with 6 people of their preferred gender last night, or how they're talking about, they wrote this really good thing at work. There's that point where it'll reach out and grab people, it'll connect to people, because we're all connected anyway. And this is not some weird, we are all one. No. There's loads of us. There's 7.x billion humans on the planet, of which we are inhabited each by billions of bloody bacteria. Life is full of many, many things, but there is still that connection. And so that's why I'm happy to do this, why I'm happy you're doing this, and why I'm happy, like, Gordon's doing his Find the Others thing on his blog.
Wait, who?
Gordon White, RoSoup.
Oh, right.
Find the Others,
No. I thought you said Jordan. I'm like, Jordan?
Oh, no, sorry. Gordon is doing his Find the Others thing. And, it's why I'm happy magicians are talking about it. It's why I'm happy that Seth managed to put his Visible College stuff online. And why I'm happy that the Soma folks are doing what they're doing with all the webinars. Because it is, okay, it's a bunch of crazy people talking about crazy things. But you know what? Crazy people talking about crazy things, it's like, and forgive me for saying this, it's like having people of different races and genders on TV or in media.
Right.
Because it gives people, hold on, wait a minute, there are people like me, and they're talking about things that interest me.
Exactly. And we're having fun. We're having a good time. We're not, it's not always like pleasant and happy, but, no matter how bullshit it is, we still understand what it means, and we're still, like, interacting with it consciously, and it's possible in a way that most of the things that people, most media does not present the opportunity to participate in your manifest reality the way that, we do. We both do.
Yeah, the thing for me is, I remember, and this is part of my, quote, magical origin story, is I remember being given a fantasy book to read by a friend. I think it was something by a woman named Catherine Kerr. And in one of the books, because she has quite detailed magic, which heavily resembles ceremonial magic, invocations of sylphs, and the elemental beings. And she wrote an afterword going, so I've had people asking me, do I believe in magic? Because they've seen this, ceremonial stuff. And she's like, I don't, but I know people who do. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there like 13 reading this going, wait, this shit is real? There are people that believe this stuff? And it's a fantasy book. And but it was really detailed. And I'm just like, what? There are people that believe this is real? And this before I heard of any form of, like, Crowley or anything else. Because maybe I was, sheltered youth, like my dad being a vicar, I don't know. But it was the first time I ever encountered it, and it was like, whoa, there are people who do this stuff. And it's real. And that was the point at which my brain went, click. If there are people that do this, then I should probably investigate it. And that investigation has led to me doing that. And if there are people who listen to this or who hear this, in a recording, if they randomly come over your blog, I mean, you know, then win.
Yeah,
because
right. All right, so
my life is fucking awesome thanks to magic, and it wouldn't have been if I hadn't realized that this shit was real.
well,
So
all right, so we've been talking for like 2 hours now, and we're way beyond the TLDR moment.
Yep.
You know, there's nobody who's like listening anymore who started the movie. But fuck them. I think at this point we're actually talking about the things that are valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've drunk enough to where we don't even give a fuck anymore, and we're just saying what we feel. You know, and
I think the world would benefit a lot more from people doing that. And that's not some sort of like, oh, lovey-dovey sort of thing. It's just, because if you say what you feel, then people can go, actually, what you just said there is pretty toxic, and you probably need to work on it, you know, or that's awesome, let's do more of this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and
100%.
This is what, and it goes back, I guess it goes back to the ritualized drinking, where it's that little bit where you undo yourself just a little bit, and everybody's in this slightly buzzed state, and, you know.
All right, so what I'm planning on doing is like editing this whole conversation into 2 parts and showing like the last half, the most important part where we're serious about this. We'll show that first, and then we'll show the second half where we're like, hi, how's it going?
Yeah. That's fair. I don't fucking care, mate. You do it as you like, because it's, as I said, it's your show. I'm just the guy rambling on the other end.
All right, so one of the reasons you're the guy that's rambling on the other end is because I really appreciate you. You know, I'm really grateful that you're doing the things you do, and I'd never, ever, ever want you to stop. If there's anything I can do to promote you in any way, shape, or form as a brand, not that you're, I think that's probably like the most offensive thing I could say to you.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, because, you know, obviously, since we're being honest, I mean, I've taken a break from the foolish people stuff, because since about June, I've been dealing with what was early in the summer a fairly heavy-duty depressive episode, and it's sort of leveling out now. But there was a point where I was like, yeah, I need to just step back. And it's really interesting because I've dealt with a lot of shit during this period, but it's proof that actually a lot of work that I've done has worked, because even at the bad points of this period, I'm a shit ton better than I was maybe 10 years ago when it was the last time it was this bad. And so, in a sense, this break period has been like this wonderful, it's a bit grim, but things have improved, and I can tell things have improved. So the system, again, like we're talking about the boat, works, because the system means you're actually better off. Even though when things are shitty, you're still better than where you were without the boat, you know?
Yep.
And so the brand thing for me, I'm like, oh, I really should, but it's really, really, really winds me up, and I have this whole issue when it comes to branding. But it's why I respect people like you who can do it.
Well,
I'm like,
we need people like you too, you know. Otherwise, we're all alone here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing for me, because I'm like sitting here and I'm thinking, as we're talking, I'm like, we love what we do. We both love what we do.
Right.
You know, and for some people, the way of doing what you love to do is going, you know what, I can make money at this. Honestly, if I could work out a way to market what I do, I'd probably make some money at it, but that involves like
work,
changing my perspective on work, and I'm happy enough as it is, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, that might change in a couple of years when situations change, but so be it. I've got the skills to do that and the friends to help me out with it when I need it to. And I think that's the key point, is that you have to be aware that things change. So as you were saying earlier, you know, before we started recording, not everything lasts. The work lasts, but the periods don't necessarily last. Things change, you know, but the system, the way you live, the way you exist, that develops, but it doesn't, so long as it's rooted and connected, it doesn't really change. It just grows, you know. It's like you start off with a nice strong sapling, and you know, 20 years down the line it's now an oak tree, and it may be a bit gnarled and twisted, but any storm that comes along ain't gonna knock that shit over for hundreds of years.
Right.
Probably even after you.
And you get maybe a basket full of apples that you get to keep through the winter if you don't eat them all fast.
You're like, oh, you've got a basket full of apples that enables you to go through the winter, and every so often you can randomly give those apples to people you like, because fuck it, they're apples, and I've got enough right now. So here, have some more apples. They're delicious and homegrown. And,
Well, they make really good mead with some raisins and some cinnamon. So.
Yeah, currently I've just got some bog standard honey mead on the go. So.
Oh yeah, me too.
But bear that in mind.
All right.
We've got about 5 gallons in the library at the moment, so that'll be like 20 bottles when that's finally done in about 6 months. So.
Yeah, I mean, the occasional scotch is good, but for a real magician, it's entirely not necessary. I'm just saying.
Nope. I mean, that's the point. Going back to the whole, a little bit with the whole LSD thing. It's like I actually believe that Crowley was right about drugs.
Uh-oh.
In the whole, well, some bits of the hallucinogenic bits where you take them for a bit. I'm not saying them for everyone, but then you have the experience, and then you're like, okay, how can I do this without drugs now? How can I do this without LSD? How can I feel that sense of connectedness? And I'm not saying we should all take heroin, but the point
it's a start.
When I was younger, was I wanted, when I did explore the entheogenic realm more regularly than I ever do these days, was I need to find out about myself. And I always went into this in a spiritual context. And I've known some classic acid casualties who just, chewed it every single day for years and ended up, boom, Ozzy Osbourne level, what the fuck. But I always find that exploring, going into it with the right intent and going into it was enough. And then I came out into magic and went, look, I can do this to my consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Similar levels without this substance, which isn't to say I'm like, oh, anti-drug. I'm just like, again, it boils down to, if you want to talk to me about these things, I'll talk to you about them, but I wouldn't recommend them. This is my giant, I have had these life experiences.
Yep.
I can tell you about them, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Well,
I'm not advocating that. And that's not a legality disclaimer. That's just I don't think they're for everyone. But
right.
They do give me experiences, which I can help talk to people about.
We do the things that we can handle, and other people shouldn't. I mean, that's fair, but I think everybody should at least try it and see how it works out for them. But that's just kind of my thing, so I'm not nearly as responsible and mature about it if you are.
Saying that, I had a reputation, and still kind of do, when I was helping out at the University Pagan Society, because I did that for, along with other folks who were ex-members for years, because I live in a college town. I was very much like, I'm not recommending this, you shouldn't do this. But, however, I'm going to throw, drugs-wise, but I am going to throw complete noobs into some fairly heavy-duty ritual work, because I can, and you can choose to participate, or you can choose not to. But there was one of the guys I knew who ran it on a whole bunch of college students, was a weekly Liebsamic session, which was fun, and blew some brains, where you had a whole group of people doing Liebsamic at once, which was kind of interesting. And I was sat in the corner going, you know what? I like Liebsamic, but I prefer the right headless one, so I'm going to quietly do the right headless one in my head. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Craig, I think we're at the moment in our drunkenness where we're talking about things that most of the people who've done drugs won't even understand.
Yep. So I think
we're like at the sub administrative levels of drug usage.
Yeah.
And I would just like to let everybody know he's totally right. 100%. And if you haven't done those drugs that much, then you won't even be able to keep up. But anyway, I'm all drunk.
Yeah. I think this is probably a good time to draw the recording to a close. Anyway.
Probably, yeah. I would like to thank you very much and express my love for you as a.
You are very welcome, my friend. You are very welcome, and the love for you also extends post whiskey. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I love you.
It's not just because of the alcohol. I loved you before I started drinking, and I'll love you after I sober up. But anyway.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this awesome thing, and we'll do it again sometime because people need to understand what it's about, and even if it's not for people who attend or even watch, maybe some alien race can understand that some of us weren't some fucked up idiots.
Some future archaeologists might be like, oh, they're actually drunk, but they're actually making sense.
Right? And they get it. And see how ethanol worked in early biological specimens. Anyway, hopefully they can watch the video. Hey, aliens, this is for you.
Hey, extra-dimensional, ultra-terrestrial things from beyond space and time. Yeah, anyway.
Right.
Okay, man.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, good times, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, let me know when you got it all edited together, because I'll be interested to see what we've actually got.
No. I'm just gonna publish it because at this point everybody's already dropped off. They have like this teeny little attention span. So anyway,
Yeah,
all right.
we have nothing for 2 hours, right? Okay.
All right, I've stopped recording.